With light, you can show the dimension of your work and create some really interesting shadows. In this lesson, we're going to see how these layers function and what the different types of light look like. Create your new composition with the color black. Hit OK, make a solid layer, Command Y or Control Y. Choose a vibrant color. Then make a shape layer. So something really simple. I'm going to make a circle, put it at the center of my work. And now we want to turn these into 3D layers. So we cannot use light layers on 2D objects. That's the first thing about these type of layers. We're going to need 3D layers, and it really helps when there is a space between your objects. So let's go into Custom V1 over here and grab our shape layer, hit P, then drag it closer and away from your solid layer. I'm going to hit C on my keyboard, and now you can see there's a nice space between our solid and our shape. Go back into active camera. So at a glance, nothing looks different, but in reality, we have brought the circle closer to the camera. I'm going to make a camera layer as well. We already learned about cameras. Just bring it in and lock it. We're not going to be animating anything yet. So to create a light layer, you need to go up here, Layer, New Light. You can also make a light layer down here, right-click, New Light. So we have some settings before we create the light layer. The first thing is your name. You can type in anything you want. Next, we have our light type. So we have 4 different types here, and I'm going to start with the most basic one, which is the point light. Later on, we'll see what the others do, but point light essentially emits light from a single point. We're going to stick with this one, so it's less complicated than all the other ones. You can start with this one for now. And one thing about the point light is that it doesn't have a point of interest, meaning that similar to the one-node camera that we saw, doesn't have a point of interest. So for simpler luminosity results, you would want to use the point light. Next is intensity, which is how intense that light is. You can increase or decrease it. 100% is a good place to start. We can always come back in the layer options and change this. So this is not permanent. Next, we have fall off, which is basically the decrease of luminosity over distance. So when you're creating distance between your object and your light, let's say it's here, you're going to create fall off, and this will make your composition look more realistic. So imagine a flashlight that you're pointing onto a white ball. As you move further away from that ball, you're going to naturally create some fall off, and the luminosity will decrease when you move away from the ball. So if you want to create a realistic lighting effect, you would want to choose one of the fall off options. But if you're just trying to put light to show the different sides of your shape, you can leave it on none. I will show you what these guys look like later on, but for now, let's just leave this on none. The next option is cast shadows. When you enable this, you're going to have your shape cast its shadow when the light is in front of it. So if I have this turned on and I keep my light here, I will get a shadow from my white ball. But if I turn this off, there will be no shadow even though my light is over here. Down here we have options for the shadows, how dark it is. You can go from 0% to more than 100%, and the diffusion that we can change. So this right now is my light. Click away, lock my shape layer. I'm going to make my circle another color. Let's go for this purple. Lock my shape. Now this star thing is your light. When you move it away, you can see that my purple shape is becoming darker, but towards the right where my light is, it's a bit brighter. So it's pretty simple. We got the gizmos like all the other 3D objects, which allows us to rotate, use the X, Y, and Z position to place it exactly where it needs to be, And we can also hit P on our light to move it maybe behind our shape or in front of it. I'm going to go to Custom View 1. This right now is our light. I can use Position Z to just move it behind my circle. We turn this to 2 view so we can see exactly what's happening. So right now my light is behind my circle and my circle has turned black. But I can use Position Z again to bring it in front, and now it's pretty visible. Move it towards the right. You can even move it completely out of frame to get a really soft light. So that is the point light. It will shoot light in every direction from the source. So as it goes further away from the source, naturally it will get darker. Alright, so this is the most simplest version. Let's take a look at the options that we have. When we open point light, we have the transform, which is just for position, because rotation isn't necessary since the light is evenly distributed all around. We just get position options for X, Y, and Z. Next, we have light options down here. It's pretty similar to the window we first got. So first I can choose the type of light. I'm going to keep it on point for now. The intensity, like we said, concerns how much light is being emitted from that point. Make it really bright, or maybe 30%. So adjust how bright or dim your light is using intensity. All of these guys have keyframes, so you can create a keyframe for the intensity. I'm going to turn my resolution down, and you can just get a dim animation for your shape. We also have the speed graph for all of these keyframes, so it's going to function like any other layer would. So when I grab my keyframes, I can go to the speed graph and change how this transition is happening. All right, let's hit Command Z. Next, we have color, which we left on white, but when we change this, we're going to get a different color emitted from our light. So this is green right now. We can go for maybe blue and just work around with the intensity to choose a more natural look. You can also reduce from your color saturation if you don't want to get a blue like that. So the colors are pretty cool because you get to create maybe a blue and purple hue around your object, make it look really futuristic. And in the further lessons, we're going to see how we can use color and intensity to illuminate our shape in a retro futuristic style. We have the option for fall off. The first one is smooth and the other one is inverse square clamped. The difference between these two is that the second option, inverse square clamped, is more calculated compared to the first one. So the smooth version is just gonna decline in a pretty constant rate. So it's going to be decreasing in a linear way. But the second option is going to calculate and decrease proportionally to the inverse square of the distance. So it already says inverse square, but this will give you a more realistic look compared to the first one. But like we said, it depends on what you're trying to do here. If you're just trying to create some simple shadows, you can just leave it on none. But if you're creating a hyper-realistic 3D effect, you would want to go for the last option. So once we choose one of these, we have the option for radius and fall off distance. So the radius is talking about how big this area is. You can increase it like that or decrease it to get a really small result. So this right now is 50. I'm going to move it here. And you can see how the fall off is pretty natural because right now, let me go in here. Right now our light is here. This is our shape layer. That's our background. Now, realistically, if you move this light away, you would not be able to illuminate anything. But when we remove the fall off, you You can see that we're still illuminating everything even though we're this far away. So fall off is meant for a more realistic approach. This is smooth, pretty calculated. I'm going to move it in closer. And bring it back in front of my shape. Then we have the inverse square clamped. So this is a lot more realistic than the first one. I'm going to bring it in closer to my shape. You can see how little it's illuminating compared to if it was the smooth version. Go back in here, increase the radius so we can see a bit more of our shape. So this is literally like an actual flashlight. You can see that I'm lighting up this section, but at the same time, I'm having a little bit of illumination around the background. You can increase the radius, like we mentioned. Fall off distance is the distance that the light falls from your object. I'm gonna leave mine at 0. Let's go back to none, get our non-realistic lighting, bring this guy back. Then we have something called cast shadows. So right now it's on, but as you can see, I'm not really getting a shadow on my shape. The reason for that is because most times you would have to enable it manually on your shape layer. So go into shape layer 1, open this up, go to material option, and make sure that it casts shadows. Right now it's turned off, but once we turn it on, we can see our shadow. Just turn it on here. Let's go back, lock that again. Now that I have my shadows, and I can disable it here too. Now that I have my shadows, I can work with the darkness. Maybe make it even more darker or get like a very faint color, like 30%. Diffusion talks about how soft that light is. So if you increase it, you're going to get a really soft, you can barely see it now. You're going to get a really soft shadow from your shape. You can see that we're softening out the edges. So those are the options for point light. These guys, most of these guys are present in all the other light types, but there are also some new options depending on which one you choose. So that was point light. In the next lesson, we're going to learn about spotlight. I'll see you guys there.